Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Football Forecast, podcast number 5. I'm Steve, and of course, as always, we're joined by my co-host Austin.
What's up, everybody? I'm not gonna be, using my voice as much today. I'm a little bit under the weather for today, so you'll kind of see me take a back seat for this episode. But yeah, we do got a lot to talk about though.
Yeah, we of course got a lot going on. Everybody's getting ready for the football season to kick off. First, the college football season, and of course, not too long after that, the NFL season. Of course, the NFL is getting about midway or a little over midway through their preseason schedule. We're about a couple weeks out away from the week one games in the NFL. So we've been watching that. And of course, also been keeping an eye on all the fall camp action on college football as we get ready for the season to start there. And of course, we actually have a game, or actually a couple of games to talk about this week. As this Saturday kicks off, what is being called Week Zero action this Saturday. Of course, the big game this Saturday is the one that we played in Orlando. Saturday night, 7 p.m. Be televised on ESPN, and that is Florida playing Miami. So that should be a very interesting game to watch. Florida, of course, will come to the game ranked number 8, at least according to the AP poll, which recently came out here in the last week. Miami is not ranked. But still, Miami is a team that they have a new coach, new coaching staff. They've always got some talented players, so that should be a good game. Florida's going to come to the game about a 7-point favorite, 7.5-point favorite. It's the current spread from what I see here. And of course, week one games are usually the toughest ones to predict because, as all teams have, you have new players. Sometimes you have places where you have new coaches. And there are changes that some teams undergo from one season to the next. So, really, in some cases, you have to see a team play at least one game where you kind of get a feel for what they might be, what they're going to look like. If they're going to be as good or as bad as what people might think they are before the season kicks off. But really looking forward to that game. That should be very interesting. I think Florida will win the game. I think they'll win by more than the 7.5 they're predicting here. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. I think it'll be a very competitive game. But I think Florida would probably end up winning the game comfortably. I'm not sure what the score might be. My guess is it'll be probably somewhere along the lines of I would say maybe a 27-13 kind of game, maybe something like that. Florida, of course, has an advantage. Number one, they do have an experienced quarterback coming in, Felipe Franks. He is a quarterback who really came on the last half of last season for the Gators. He has been steadily improving. Quarterback who is much maligned and criticized early part of his career at Florida. But it seems under a new coach, Dan Mullen, who will be going to his second year. Looks like that he has really improved as a quarterback. Of course, Dan Mullen, has a reputation for developing good quarterbacks. Of course, he developed Dak Prescott at Mississippi State, and of course, he's a starter now for the Cowboys. He's had some other good quarterbacks that he has coached up as well. But Florida, more experienced team, and certainly a little bit more depth and talent than Miami does. And I think Miami will come in that game really hyped. And it remains to be seen if Manny Diaz is, how good of a coach he's going to be for the Hurricanes. But, this being the first game and everything, I think Florida has a decided advantage. So, but that'll be interesting. Of course, we have another game that will also play Saturday. I'm sure people are not going to be nearly as anticipating this one, but it is a game that will actually kick off Saturday night, I believe, at 10:30 Eastern. It's on the CBS Sports Network, I believe. And that will be Arizona playing at Hawaii. Um, Hawaii, one of those teams not really don't really keep up with. Arizona, of course, coming out of the Pac-12, but the game is in Hawaii, and Hawaii probably has a little bit of an advantage there. Uh, but again, I'm not paying close attention to that game necessarily. Be interesting to see how an Arizona team goes over there and performs. A lot of times when those teams have to travel a long ways and play in Hawaii, such as this, they don't usually do all that well. But we'll have to see how that goes. But anyway, those are the two games we've got coming up. Of course, next Thursday night is really kind of the real kickoff for the football season. Have a lot of games going on. We'll talk more about that next week. Of course, that's Thursday, August 29th. The headlining game for that night is going to be Georgia Tech playing at Clemson. Clemson, of course, starts the season ranked number one in both the coaches and the AP football polls. Do have some more interesting games that night as well. Number 14 ranked Utah playing at BYU, which is a rivalry game. But BYU usually pretty good. Utah, a lot of people, including myself, are picking as a sleeper team to come out of the Pac-12 to compete not only for that league's championship, but may even be a sleeper for the college football playoff. So they're a team to keep an eye on. Texas A&M is playing that night against Texas State at home. You got a UCLA team, Chip Kelly's team, traveling to play at Cincinnati that evening as well. Of course, there's some other games, but again, we'll talk more about that next week. But I'm really excited for the kickoff of the college football season. Also, too, on that note, as I mentioned a moment ago, earlier this week, or I should say, a few days ago, the first AP Top 25 poll came out. Pretty much mirrors the coaches poll that came out a week or so ago. Not much different. You'll find a team or two flip-flop here and there, but it kind of lays out pretty much the same. Won't go through all of it, but the teams you expect to be out near the top are Clemson, of course, number 1. Alabama's 2, and you got Georgia 3, Oklahoma 4, Ohio State 5, LSU at 6. I think some people are debating if LSU is a little bit high there to start the season, but I know a lot of people are interested to see how they do this year. Interesting to see if they can really challenge Alabama out of the SEC West. Michigan comes in at 7. Will Michigan finally get over the hump and be Ohio State this year? Will they actually win a game that matters? Harbaugh has had a reputation in Michigan for not being able to win the big games. Seems like if he's ever going to do it, this will be the year. So that's going to be an interesting team to keep an eye on. Some people also have Michigan as a possible college playoff contender as well. So we'll have to see about that. Florida comes in at 8, as we mentioned earlier. Notre Dame's 9. Texas is 10. Some people don't know about Texas. Some people think that they're deserving of that high ranking to start the season. Some people think they may be overrated. Texas is one of those teams that currently, usually whenever they are predicted to do very well, they do not. So that'll be interesting. You got Oregon comes in at 11. Of course, they're going to open the season against Auburn 2 weeks from Saturday. And I should say a week from Saturday. Of course, Auburn comes in at 16, so that's going to be a very good game. Um, like I said, we won't go over. But that's those are the top 10 or so teams in the poll, and of course once we get through the first week of games, you're going to see probably a little bit of a shakeup, probably not a lot. Of course, usually at that first game, you kind of get a feel of, like I said earlier, how teams are going to look, and if they feel like they're deserving of whatever ranking they have to start the season. You don't have a lot of ranked matchups the first week. You have more the second week of the season. But that's something we always keep an eye on. And and one other thing I want to mention as well, as we get ready for the college football season, keep an eye on the quarterback battles. Here in the fall camp, you have a lot of schools that here in the last few days have come out and announced their starting quarterbacks for different schools. We'll go ahead and start and mention the most recent on that list, and that will be at Auburn, which of course ever since spring practice and carrying over into fall, it's basically been a two-man battle for the starting quarterback job, and that is between redshirt sophomore Joey Gatewood and true freshman Bo Nix. Gus Malzahn, of course, announcing today, or being reported today, that he has named Bo Nix as their starting quarterback for their opening game against Oregon. Bo Nix, again, is a true freshman. He's the first true freshman that will start a game at quarterback for Auburn, I believe, since 1946, if I saw that correctly. So that's not something that happens every day. And of course, he is a true freshman. He's from Pinson, Alabama. Played high school ball at Pinson Valley. Played an offense similar to what they run at Auburn, which is a RPO heavy type offense. Although Bo Nix is a bit more of a passing quarterback as opposed to Joey Gatewood, who was a little bit better runner. So it'll be interesting to see how Bo Nix integrates himself and performs in the Auburn offense. And he is really more in the mold of Jarrett Stidham, who, of course, was Auburn's quarterback the last two seasons, really being more of a passer versus a runner. It's long been believed that for Auburn's offense to work well in Gus Malzahn's offense, that you need to have a dual threat quarterback, a quarterback who is able to make plays and run the football. So we'll have to see how that goes. And of course, Bo Nix, his dad, Patrick Nix, was also a quarterback at Auburn in the early 90s. Started for a couple of seasons there and did pretty well. So that's one thing. Also, too, looks like today we had at West Virginia, they have named graduate transfer quarterback Austin Killough as their starting quarterback. Austin Killough, of course, transferred to West Virginia from Oklahoma. Of course, he transferred from Oklahoma to West Virginia when Jalen Hurts transferred from Alabama to Oklahoma. And of course, within the last week, or the last few days, I should say, of course, Jalen Hurts has been officially named as the starting quarterback at Oklahoma, beating out, believed to be their true freshman, Spencer Rattler, for that job. And it looks like also that Illinois has also announced their starting quarterback for week one, which would be Brandon Peters. He is a transfer from Michigan. Of course, transferring after losing out on the job there to Shea Patterson, who, of course, transferred a couple of years ago from Ole Miss to Michigan. So, but we have... But that's kind of been the main headlines here in the last week. A lot of quarterbacks being named as starters at respective schools. where battles were ongoing. So we've been keeping an eye on that as well. And I think there's still a couple more battles to be decided at certain schools. And we'll probably talk some more about that next week. Austin, you got anything you want to talk about?
At the moment, I didn't really, prepare much due to, kind of feeling a little bit under the weather. But, there were some big stories earlier this week that, everybody's talking about. Before we get into the ones, earlier this week with Antonio Brown and everything, let's dive into what Baker Mayfield said today really quick, which I thought was personally pretty funny. So earlier today, I believe it was today, or at least that's when the quote came out today. Baker Mayfield said he thought it was crazy and that it blew his mind that the Giants drafted Daniel Jones with their first-round pick, even before they made it to their number 17 pick. So that is something that most NFL fans agreed with or have proclaimed, after that deal was made, after that pick was made. From the second it was made to now, people are still saying it's one of the worst picks in history. And obviously, I think it comes from a joke that, there is Kyler Murray, who obviously got picked before, but there was also Dwayne Haskins and, players like that. There's also, Will Greer and Drew Lock and other quarterbacks. And not to say those guys are better, but there were a lot of quarterbacks. And it was really ironic to see the Giants pick somebody that was so closely resembled Eli Manning and somebody that had such a lower skill set than the quarterbacks that were already available there. So it really, makes you want, from a football analysis aspect, it really, shows you that there's something there that they want, something that they see. Obviously, to the normal football fan, it just looks like a bad deal, a bad pick. But, to somebody like us, you don't have multi-million-dollar organizations and pick something, that stupid for no reason, or pick something that stupid regardless. You don't do that. They planned this out for months. They obviously knew who they were going to go with here, and they had a reason to pick him, and judging from the preseason, they could have been right. Daniel Jones has looked really good during the preseason, but still, that joke kind of, or that kind of culture of talking of Daniel Jones just stems from a joke that was just kind of made during that draft, and it just keeps rolling on. I don't think most people kind of mean what they say there. I'm sure some people do that honestly don't understand a lot of football, but from my aspect, they have a reason to go after that guy. But anyways, Baker Mayfield kind of hopped on this whole bandwagon thing, and I think he was asked in GQ. I can't remember what magazine it was, but I think it was GQ, so I'm going to just say it was GQ.
Yes.
Basically, GQ, they asked him a question, and I don't know the exact question, but he responded with, it blows my mind that they picked Daniel Jones, basically. So that is, pretty wacky to see a quarterback kind of say that, but Baker Mayfield has been known for these kind of antics since he's gotten, to Cleveland, even before that. And Baker's not one of these guys to go around, and he's not like an Antonio Brown or a Le'Veon Bell or something like that. If he's going to make those kind of jokes and make those kind of quips, it's because he knows he has the team on his back and he knows he's trying to lead a team. Because Baker Mayfield's probably in the top 3 leaders in the NFL right now. Even, as, being a sophomore in his profession, he's probably one of the top 3 leaders in the league with Tom Brady and other people. He's really good at hyping up an entire locker room, and you saw that with the first Cleveland win in 2 seasons. You could obviously see that he can hype up a locker room, and that's what he does. And he obviously isn't going to make a joke like this unless he knows the culture around him is kind of saying the same thing. But I think Baker needs to learn, and this does sound really cliche, but Baker just needs to learn that you can't talk about other QBs like that. You can't talk about other NFL players like that because you're not invulnerable, right? I know, like, if you're in Baker's position and you bring Cleveland back from a dry, just win spell. There's no wins in your entire 2 seasons, and you're looking for a win, and you finally get that, and you're the guy that has that win single-handedly. You should feel like the king of the world. I know. I would feel like that. Anybody would feel like that. But as a quarterback in the National Football League, when you're that kind of leader, when you're as big as a leader as he is, you just can't act like that. You can't say those type of things. Even the little things. When Tom Brady I meant to say Aaron Rodgers. When Aaron Rodgers says anything like that, he is immediately ridiculed for it. And things like that. It seems like Baker Mayfield has kind of gotten a pass for how young he is, but it's about time now that he starts kind of growing up and gets used to this NFL system, because now he's leading a powerhouse in the NFL. People are projecting the Browns to make it to the playoffs. So it's time for him to act like a grown up quarterback. So I mean, that's pretty much the only conclusion I can take out of this, is that Baker just kind of needs to learn, what it takes to be a leader 100% of the time, and not just in the most glamorous moments, basically.
Yeah, but I think from anybody who's followed Baker Mayfield's career and has watched him and followed him, this is just kind of who he is. And maybe as he gets older and he'll mature some, maybe you'll see less of that out of him, but that's just who he is, and that's his reputation. He's a brash guy. He likes to trash talk a bit. He will come out and make off-the-cuff statements, such as this one about Daniel Jones, and you're probably going to see more of that.
Exactly. Well, I think what separates Baker from the rest of the players that do that, because we don't like when we see that typically. I think what separates Baker when he does that, though, is that he actually shows up, and he works every day, and he actually puts points on the board. And he actually beats people by 3 or more touchdowns every time.
I mean, if you go out there and do it, and you're out there balling and you're doing it and you're playing well, and back it up, then you go out and say those things, you're not going to get much backlash. If you're going out there and you're just playing terribly and sucking and you're still doing that, then you're going to get hit with a lot of criticism. But
and players, just historically in the NFL, a lot of players have been like that and been successful and been named the greatest in their craft, like Dion, the ultimate, trash talker, right, and things like that. But he's one of the best athletes to play any sport ever. He is the best cornerback in the NFL ever, and there will never be a greater corner.
But perhaps one of the worst tacklers.
Yeah, well, yeah.
The best cover guy ever, but not one of the best tacklers.
But a common theme you see with those guys is that they talk a lot of that stuff, but they always show up for work. They always do what they're asked, and they always show out. They always ball out. And when you see guys like Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, and I would say Josh Norman too, because he talks a lot of trash, but he doesn't really show out. But really what I'm talking about is the Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell guys that kind of talk a lot of stuff, but they're bringing it from like a myself perspective. When these guys like Dion and Baker and just quarterbacks historically are always for the team. When they say these type of things, it's always based off the team. It's always to try to get people hyped up and rile people up. And I think from an Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell perspective, it's like all these things that they do are like for themselves. And Baker, I think he knows that he is in a single unit with this team. So I think that's what separates him from these other guys. For me, I don't care if he says this stuff. Seriously, like he can come out here and say that, like I said, because he balls out every game and he knows he's part of a unit. He leads his team and things like that. And he's not being ousted like Antonio Brown is for being, the one-man show and things like that. So that's kind of, my view on that. I think obviously you're not supposed to act like that as a quarterback, but that's the kind of guy he is. And he'll probably be like that historically. And he'll probably ball out every week until he retires, acting like that. I mean, if he can back it up, then yeah. It's not like he went out there and said, "Oh, okay, well the Giants picked Daniel Jones, so I'm holding out." It's not like he did that. So it's just kind of it's just trash talk. It's what you see in football. So that's pretty much it for that.
Well, and of course, we have other NFL stories going on. Of course, the ongoing saga with AB, with the Raiders. Of course, everybody knows Antonio Brown, the issue of leaving practice, holding out. First, of course, it was over the issue with his feet, which were frostbitten.
Cryotherapy machine.
Cryotherapy incident. And then, with that going on, also there has been the ongoing helmet issue. Of course,
We talked about last week, right?
we talked about it last week. Antonio Brown, of course, was upset because the NFL wouldn't allow him to wear the helmet that he has worn for the previous 8 seasons of his NFL career. Apparently, the helmet has gotten to a certain age where, because of its age, it's no longer certified by the league. And he was asked to wear a new helmet, or at least one that could be certified. Apparently, he had found a replacement, but then found that the replacement he had gotten was also not going to be certified by the league. He got upset about that. Left training camp. And of course, he got some backlash from Coach Gruden, also from their
owner Mike Mayock, right?
the general manager Mike Mayock.
Oh yeah, general
Yeah,
manager.
basically calling him out and saying, hey, he needs to cut all the bull crap, and if he wants to be part of this team, he needs to show up, and he needs to either be all out or all in, according to Mayock. And apparently, at this point, appears to be at least today, he's all in, ready to go, according to Coach Gruden. Apparently, he did show back up at the team's practice facility today, wearing a certified helmet. So apparently, he was there wearing the helmet, worked out with the team. Is this the end of all this, what I would call nonsense, or
Definitely not.
to be nice about it, or bull crap, or however you want to call it? Probably not.
Because he did file another grievance, which is one thing.
Right.
Cause
He has filed another grievance, so that is yet to be decided. I'm sure he'll probably meet with the same decision as the first grievance was met with. I don't know why this will be any different, but that remains to be seen. But of course, has receivers and cornerbacks who has a group collectively are kind of given the diva tag at the NFL. This basically what this is. This is totally diva behavior. It's typical of a lot of players, not all, but a lot of players who played those positions in the league. So we probably hadn't heard of the last of the hijinks from AB this year. This is, I would suspect, probably an ongoing issue. And probably once this is passed, then there'll probably be something else and something else. And it's just going to be interesting to see how well he actually plays this year and how long the Raiders are going to be willing to put up with that. Now, if he goes out and puts up a great year, puts up great numbers, as a coach, general manager, you're willing to put up with that. But then if he doesn't, then that's a different story. So,
yeah, I mean, I think I speak for all Raiders fans, NFL fans, all football fans, when I say that this controversy, these antics need to stop soon. And it's very little things, right? I mean, it's complaining about a helmet and things like that, but it all translates to something huge. This is the biggest nightmare for anyone that is a NFL hater / a college football lover. The people that don't like the NFL because of free agency and things like that, and that it's being paid to play. You're being paid to go out there and do these things, so it doesn't feel like you're playing with a brotherhood. You're playing for money, and you're playing for a paycheck, and that's always been an age-old argument for the NFL, which is ironic because it's the dream to get there. But this is the biggest nightmare for somebody that hates the NFL and loves college football, because this is the last thing you want to see college football turn into. And this is the last thing you want to see happen to players when they get into the NFL. You see players that are now so bounded by money, and that's it. You haven't seen him care about one thing on the football field besides his helmet, really. Everything else has been, very socially controversial and money-wise. And it's like he doesn't care about the game of football. And it's just mind-boggling to me. And obviously he says he doesn't have to come back and play. He already has his money. Well, I mean, if that was true, why would he be on the Raiders? Why would he be all by himself, on the Raiders if it wasn't about money, if it wasn't about, being the show again, being the one-man show? And so, yeah, like I said, it's the biggest nightmare for any football fan, because these things turn players into monsters, or they can at least. You see players like Julio Jones, you see guys like Lamar Jackson who have the talent to be the biggest asses on the planet. But those guys are the most, classy people you could find in the NFL. You have the Julio Jones, the Lamar Jacksons. You have, I would say, Cam Newton. He's had his fair share of antics. Nowhere close to Antonio Brown level. Always shows up. Things like that. Never starts any controversy. You have all these guys. I mean, I could go on and on. You have guys that are the best in the league. DeAndre Hopkins, another one, like literally just spewing off the top of my head. The guys that are the best in the league that don't say anything, that show up because they love the sport, they love to play. Right. They don't talk because all they do is play, and they have fun while they're doing it. Obviously, because that's their thing. They wanna work. They want to play football. So I think that this whole controversy is probably it just looks bad for all of football, because now players see how this is, how you can act, not how you're supposed to act, because he's getting ridiculed for it. But now players are saying, oh, this is an option. If I'm this good, I can do whatever I want. I can act this way. I can go to whatever team I want. I can, leave one team, demand a trade, and be somewhere else, which is not how the game is played. And players are going to find that out really quick. It's the same thing with college football now with the transfer portal. You have guys, like Jalen, who are going, back and forth between schools and are actually good. But then you have guys like, I want to say Justin Fields, because he hasn't really gotten a fair shot yet. But you have guys like him and Tate Martell, especially guys like that see these guys go through the transfer portal and be successful, and they're like, okay, if I don't get to play here, then I'll go there. And then it sets a bad example, because they don't end up the same way as those players do. It sets a very bad example. I think, I speak for everybody when I say this controversy needs to be over soon. It's just bad for football. It's bad for all sports in general. I mean, I don't know why football has this problem, but like you said, wide receiver, cornerback, kind of, diva type thing. Luckily, we don't really have any more of these guys besides Antonio Brown at this moment. We know, a couple seasons ago, OBJ was kind of like this, but at the moment, I think he's just happy to be in Cleveland. Right. So we don't really have to worry about anybody's antics except, Antonio Brown now. Obviously, we have Zeke. Controversy. Yeah, I mean, Zeke's one of them.
The other ongoing issue in the NFL right now.
Zeke's one of those guys because he has issues off the field. See, Antonio Brown doesn't have, issues off the field with police and things like that. We haven't really seen any of those. Zeke has had those type of issues, but the one thing I will say about Zeke is that he works. He will show up to work if he has a reason to. But Antonio Brown's not sitting here holding out. He's not wanting to come to practice because of a helmet issue, and Zeke's not wanting to come for money. Zeke is one of those guys though that I would put in there as a player that you have to kind of look out for, and a diva type of player. But I feel like he's kind of gotten away from that image. But now with this holdout thing, it seems like he's kind of teetering on the edge of it again. Now I say that he's not, or he could be going to the classy type of football player, because we haven't heard much out of him for a while, before this. And also he's putting up big numbers when he's not hurt and things like that. And he likes to work, and he likes to have fun, and he makes that Cowboys offense really smooth. And Dak Prescott's a classy type of quarterback too, doesn't say anything like that. And him and Zeke get along really well, so that's kind of a package you see. But with this holdout thing, I don't know. It's more controversy you see in football, and that's not good for the game either. But that's just a solid part of the NFL where, complaining about a helmet is not. So, even this being an element still kind of brings a little bit of controversy, and any controversy is not good for football, because we just like to watch football. I mean, we don't really care about all this. So
yeah, but it remains to be seen how that's going to work out. If you read about it, read articles, listen to what some guys on TV say about the issue, a lot of them seem to believe that this will be resolved before week one, and that Zeke will be ready to go week one, ready to play. But it doesn't appear, I don't see any reports or anything advising that there are serious talks ongoing, that they're close to making a deal, or anything like that is imminent. So So I have a lot of doubts about if he's actually going to be ready or even playing for the Cowboys at least week 1. And if he doesn't play week 1, how long will this go on? So that will be interesting to watch.
You better hope he plays week 1 because you drafted him in fantasy.
Yeah.
So.
Not me.
I thought you drafted him in
Not
fantasy.
me.
Not you? Okay.
I'm not going to draft a guy that's not even playing.
Yeah.
We're practicing right now.
Somebody in our fantasy league, because we drafted on Saturday, somebody drafted Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, don't start him.
Yeah, before we even, said, or after we told everyone, because we have some players in there that haven't learned a lot about football lately, that are new to kind of the sport, watching it. So we really explained to them, the players that weren't, going to be starters right off the gate or in holdouts, and Zeke was one of them, and we had somebody draft Zeke. So, that's, hopefully for him, Zeke ends this holdout mess pretty early. I hope they get that money split between the 3 guys, Amari Cooper, Dak, and Zeke. We talked about it 2 weeks ago, I think, but when we're talking about that situation, to me, at least, and I know this isn't possible because you got to pay your QB, to me, I say, pay Amari everything you have. Amari deserves literally everything. He's a Julio Jones level receiver, never gotten the shot to show it. But the thing about Amari Cooper, he's very different from a lot of these other receivers. On First Take a while back, in the beginning of the summer, Amari Cooper was featured on First Take in an interview, and he was actually asked about his status as ranked in the wide receivers. He says that he feels that he is the top of the line, that he feels he is the best. He's definitely in the top 3, but he knows nobody else thinks the same thing because he hasn't gotten a chance to show it, and he says that he hasn't showed it yet. So that's a thing where he's on the Cowboys now. I believe that he is a top 3 wide receiver. I believe he is up there with Julio Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, and either Antonio Brown or whatever. He's in that conversation, but he's never gotten a chance to prove himself. On the Cowboys now, as the lone receiver, as the weapon in the sky, he has a chance to prove it, so I will give all my money to Amari. But obviously, that's not how you can run a team.
I agree. Amari Cooper, this will be his 4th NFL season?
I think so, yeah, 4th or 5th.
So he's really kind of hitting or getting close to his peak years as an NFL receiver. And he's been in the league long enough to know what it takes to be successful, what you have to do to prepare to be successful in the league. And he's got all the tools to be a great receiver. He's always been known as a great route runner. He always had a great work ethic, has all the skills. Doesn't have elite speed, but if you look at a lot of the great receivers in the league, there aren't that many who have what you would call elite speed. They just know how to play the position. They're great receivers. They have great hands. They know how to run great routes and know how to get open. That's what makes them great.
Julio Jones doesn't have the most elite speed.
And then you use the speed when you have the opportunity to use speed. Exactly. You look at guys like Julio Jones, even guys like Antonio Brown. They don't have elite speed. They're plenty fast enough, but it's their route running and their knowledge and just a feel for the game, the ability to get open and catch balls. That makes them really good. Mark Cooper certainly fits into that category. I think he'll have a great year for the Cowboys. I do. And I think he'll end up getting a great contract with them sometime either during or maybe after this upcoming season. But I agree with that. I think he just hasn't been in the right position. He's played on a team that has, in the past, the Raiders, that had quarterback issues, either due to performance or injury. And of course, when you have that going on, you don't have a great quarterback. Then as a receiver, you're not necessarily going to put up great numbers because you just don't have as many opportunities to do so. So,
agreed. I think all in all, just talking about these situations, that's the one that is most clear to me. I think, the Amari Cooper and Dak and Zeke situation. I'd say pay Amari. Obviously, everybody has a different opinion on that. But, yeah, I say pay Amari. Zeke and Dak, that's a separate conversation because Amari is your guy. Dak obviously needs to, be paid, but he has shown time and time again that even with, good weapons, really, he's had decent wide receiver help. Probably average, I would say, and definitely not below average over the years, and he just hasn't been able to put up, the biggest numbers. So he's definitely not worthy of that contract that they want to give him. And Zeke is probably, in that kind of rounds for that money. But I think they could make some contract between all three of them that would kind of give Dak the least bit of the deal as he at the time deserves. And Zeke would get some money, but Amari should get the most. He should get the biggest, raise. He's going to carry their team and be the face of the Cowboys now. I guarantee. This is one thing that I predict, and these things I just know that these things are going to happen. These are type of things you can just look at and analyze and tell these are going to happen. Amari was built to be the leader of this team. This machine, like Julio Jones is for the Falcons. He's meant to be that just machine for the Cowboys. So I believe he'll do the same thing. In Dallas that he did at Alabama and just go off completely. Show the world that he is in the top 3 route runners in the league. And yeah, hopefully they give him his money. When we're talking about the Saints and things like that, I think, obviously Michael Thomas is way, way less talented and, of a receiver than Amari Cooper is. So I don't agree with, his contract. And I don't know how they're going to pay everybody else with Drew Brees and Alvin Kamara and things like that. Don't know how those contracts are going to work in the future. But, like I said, there are some things that I'm sure about, a lot of things nobody's sure about in the contract world. But one thing I'm sure of is that Amari Cooper will give you the best return on your investment in the National Football League. So that's one contract thing I'm sure about. As for the rest of them, I don't even know. I try not to keep up with contracts like we said, a couple weeks ago. I don't even pay attention to most of the holdouts anymore because honestly, it's not real football talk. It's mostly just a bunch of holdouts if I'm not getting my money, and usually it's a pay raise of about $20,000. So I'm not even really worried about most of them. But the Cowboys is really interesting to me because you have kind of 3 guys that could lead the whole franchise there. But yeah. So I guess, going into some other stuff. We talked about college football earlier and the new season starting on Saturday, which, week 0 action. Nothing really happens on Saturday. Everybody knows this every year. It's the same thing. We got, mediocre games on. But this year, we do have Miami and Florida, which we are SEC fans. So I'm looking very, very forward to an actual contest, the first contest of the football season, because all we've been seeing is preseason games. So this is the first real contest of the football season that actually means something. Right. And this is going to be a great game. Number one is because I can't stand Miami. Number two is because I like Florida and they're my dark horse in the SEC this year. So this is going to be a great game, and I'm really excited to see Florida blow them out of the water because I don't know why people are saying this is like a contest for Florida right now. Like, seriously, I think some people are really hung up on Miami and, kind of their culture that they're having there with the quarterback situation. I just don't see how they're going to put up any points on Florida. I know Florida's decommit U this year. They're decommit university. I mean, somebody made a joke on Twitter while Dan Mullen was having a speech a couple months ago, and somebody made a joke on Twitter while Dan Mullen was having the speech, and he said, the guy on Twitter said, well, Dan Mullen has officially completed a 5-minute speech without one of his players transferring. And then somebody tweeted under that, actually, that's not true. Somebody transferred in the middle of his speech. And they looked on the transfer portal, and somebody transferred in the middle of his speech, a tight end. So Florida has notoriously been decommit U this offseason, which isn't, people are bringing that up when I talk, to people about the SEC at school. People are bringing that up when I talk about Florida, but that has no effect on this season. That has no effect on this game. Those are commits. Those aren't people that are there right now. Those aren't people in training camp that are just leaving. I mean, they've had some people in the transfer portal, that have gone, but nothing compared to the amount of commits that have left. So I don't think that's going to affect them against Florida. But obviously they can't be the team that is able to stand up against Georgia or Alabama this year with those kind of problems. But they can definitely beat Miami, and that this puts a huge kind of like barrier against Miami for me. I think they're going to beat Miami by at least 2 touchdowns. A lot of people are saying it's going to come down to the wire or Miami might win, but I just don't see that at all. I mean, when you have a quarterback situation like that, when you have somebody that's only completed 1 pass their entire life at quarterback starting for you at Miami, I don't see, how they're going to be able to put up points on a Florida defense. And Dan Mullen is, not the greatest coach alive, but he's definitely a coach. He's definitely a football coach, and we have seen that. The man is mostly a quarterback developer, but we know he can run some defense. Florida could run some defense last year a little bit. This year, I believe they'll do the same thing. I believe they'll be able to stop Jaron Williams, or I think that's his name, from scoring enough points to beat them this year.
I think they will. You're playing an inexperienced quarterback who's going to have his first college start. If I'm worried about a certain area on Florida's team, it will be the secondary.
I was just about to say that.
Here, since the end of last season, they've had now 4 defensive backs leave the team, either through the transfer portal or players who have gotten kicked off the team. I think at least 3 of those guys are guys who would have played significantly, if not possibly been in line to possibly start. So that's concerning. But, Florida should have plenty enough talent and players back there to still put together a decent secondary, and playing against a redshirt freshman quarterback making his first start, I don't suspect that they're going to be pushed, and I don't think I think that secondary should hold up. I don't think they'll be serious challenged by him. There will be games down the road where Florida will run 2 teams that have better and more experienced quarterbacks who can expose a weak secondary. So we'll, on down the line later on the season, we'll actually find out how good Florida's secondary is, but that would be an area of the team that I would be worried about.
Definitely, yeah, and that's why I said it's something that is going to not affect Florida at week 1, but definitely down the line is going to kind of put them at a disadvantage. But yeah, this game though, why I'm really excited to see it. Not only is it the first real contest, but like you said, with a exposing of the secondary that other teams are going to do to Florida, what Miami brings is kind of a RPO kind of QB scramble type of offense, kind of like what you saw out of FSU a year ago, 2 years ago, in the opener with DeAndre Francois. And this is the same kind of thing you're going to see. So it's going to be fun to see Florida rely on the edge rushers and the linebacker blitzes, and also the upfront coverage to kind of stop these guys, whether it be in the flats or whether it be in the middle, rushing up the middle, or putting a spy on the QB. It's going to be fun to see these two fronts battle it out, because it's not going to be a shootout. You're not going to have people throwing deep balls. Williams obviously is not going to be throwing deep balls downfield and things like that. You might have some slants here and there and some medium routes at most, but I think why I'm really excited is to see the linebacker help and the edge rusher help, especially to see what they do off the edge, to see how fast Florida is able to get to QB. To the QB is really going to set the tone for how well they can compensate for their secondary this year. So that's something I'm really excited about. When you have a game like this that is the biggest contest, but isn't between the 2 of the best teams in the national and the college football world, you really have to look for certain things that are, going to excite you and kind of, be identifiers of what's going to happen in the rest of the season. So that's something that I see. The edge rush from Florida, how well is it able to compensate for the secondary? If it is able to compensate enough, maybe they can win some of the games against the, higher tier, QBs. Obviously, they're going to be exposed by the best of the best. But maybe they could get to some of the higher tier ones instead of, somebody that's only completed one pass. So we'll see. Hopefully Florida, is able to buckle up and, put on a good show for week 1 or week 0 action of the college football season. It's very, very exciting, though, definitely. Other than that, I mean, we just have a bunch of really, really mediocre games on Saturday, which I'm not really too excited to see. But it's always exciting to see college game day on Saturday. Always exciting to get off of work or school on a Friday night and then, wake up the next morning and see who we got on college game day. We got Kirk Herbstreit and the other, I forgot.
Reese Davis.
Yeah, Reese Davis, all of them.
Lee
and,
Corso,
Corso.
I think closing on about 85, 90 years old.
It's always fun to wake up on a Saturday morning and see those 4 dipwads sitting there talking about football. It's a good time though. I'm really, really looking forward to college football season. I'm gonna try to watch as much college football as I can this year. It's definitely gonna be very exciting. We'll have a lot to talk about next week's podcast as well.
Yeah, when we do our podcast next week, we're really going to really look at some opening week games for both college and the NFL, and go ahead and I think we'll go ahead and get into making some predictions. Kind of forecasting what to expect this year, what teams we think will be good, what teams we think won't be good, what teams we think will be competing for championships, that kind of thing. Maybe picking some sleeper teams, some overrated teams, and really kind of get into it and trying to get a feel for what we're going to be looking at this year on both college and NFL.
Definitely. I mean, there's a lot to talk about in that aspect because we have a lot of story arcs going on, right? I mean, we have Clemson trying to defend their title with, Dabo apparently not being able to act like a winner. We have Alabama coming back, trying to redeem themselves and trying to establish the fact that their dynasty is not over. We have Georgia trying to scrape up the pieces of what once was the team that could end Alabama and almost did twice, trying to scrape up the pieces of that team and come back and win a national championship. We have LSU with the guy that finally has enough experience to tear up defenses to come out and try to beat Alabama or Georgia in that SEC championship, or try to make it to the college football playoff in general. Now is kind of LSU's goal. So we have that kind of arc there, and obviously we have a bunch of little side arcs in the ACC and things like that. Clemson's mainly going to dominate all of that. Most of the arcs lie in the SEC and the well, when you're looking at Oklahoma and teams like that, though, you do have the arc of Jalen Hurts, one of the classiest acts in all of football. Coming off 2 seasons where he couldn't show out really at Alabama and then saving Alabama in the SEC championship against Georgia. Coming to Oklahoma in a brand new offense that's centered around him as the starter. That's another arc. How is Jalen Hurts going to do? Is he going to be able to bring Oklahoma back to a college football playoff and finally get it done to make it to the national championship? We have Ohio State. Is Justin Fields going to be able to pull off what he was in high school and be the number 1 player in the country again, try to win that Heisman, and also try to put Ohio State back into a playoff type of situation again? All things, like that. I think that's pretty much, the top arcs that you have to see, because you really have to leave the ACC out, because Clemson, there's nothing you can talk about in the ACC. Clemson's just going to wreck everybody by 30 or more. So, I mean, yeah, but in the SEC you have a lot. Big 12 you have a lot. In Big 10 you have a lot. So, yeah, that's a lot of different stories to look at this year. And that's the fun part about giving our projections. We can basically say yay or nay on all these stories to see what happens, and just kind of watch them pan out around the the college football world. When the season starts, and it's definitely gonna be a fun time though. A lot of these arcs, more than usual. Last year we didn't see many of these type of arcs. We really only saw the biggest arc in college football last year was Alabama and Georgia. Is Georgia going to be able to beat Alabama in the SEC championship? And obviously that wasn't the case. So that was really the only arc we saw last year, I guess. Besides that, Clemson trying to make it back, into the playoffs and beat Alabama in the national championship, which they did. Those were really the only two arcs you saw. But this year, stories are coming out like a machine. It's like a factory now. We have so much to talk about, so much to predict. It's definitely going to be really fun. I'm definitely looking forward to a lot of those outcomes towards the end of the college football season. So, yeah. Looking forward to that. I'm trying to think of like some other arcs that there are, but I think I listed all of them. Other than that, though, besides speaking of college football next week, even though next week we're going to talk probably 100% about college football, after that is going to be NFL time. We're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about regarding the NFL. Probably when Alabama plays, we're going to be covering that a lot, and the rest of the SEC when they play their first games. But besides that, the NFL is going to have a lot to talk about too, because we have a lot of different stories developing regarding the rookies and also the players that are coming back for their sophomore seasons, such as Baker Mayfield, seeing how those guys can lead a team and make it to the playoffs and things like that. Also, the Chiefs, are they going to be able to come back and beat the Patriots this time and actually make it into the Super Bowl? A lot of questions to be answered in the football world, not just college football. Right. Definitely a lot more in the NFL as well. That's going to be fun. But yeah, like I said, next week is mainly going to be college football. That's what it's going to be centered around, because there's a lot. The week after that, probably the same thing, just because there's not a lot of stories to cover until these first 2 weeks are pretty much done. The NFL doesn't start for 17 days, so
yeah. At this point, I think everybody's just ready for the season to get underway and have some games to talk about. And of course, games being played will lead to extra storylines, and it'll just give us something extra to talk about. But I think everybody's just kind of keep an eye on different teams, watching the practices. I think mostly fans of different teams are just kind of keeping their fingers crossed and hoping nobody else on their respective team gets hurt. That's been a big issue both in college and NFL this month. Players being held out to prevent injury or being held out because of injury, or trying to keep them fresh for the start of the season. So
I don't know why that seems like we're seeing more of that this year than any year before. I don't know why that's like such a big deal now, but it is. I mean, NFL and college fans are very scared of seeing their favorite players get injured in training camps.
Well, it seems like it's happening more often, and the funny thing is that in recent years, both in college and NFL, they have scaled back their practices where you have less contact, less hitting to try to prevent injuries. And in doing so, it seems like we spend more time talking about that now, and it seems to be more of an issue now than I can remember it being, at least in the past several seasons.
Definitely. I'm still upset about, the whole Trey Sanders thing, so I'm just sitting here, hoping nobody else touches a football in the running back depth chart. It is until, the Alabama season starts. So, yeah, that's that. Very unfortunate for all these injuries, and a lot more that could happen before the season even starts. But, yeah. All right, well, I guess to end it off here, I'll go ahead and, like I say every week, go ahead and make sure if you like this podcast, if you like what we talk about, make sure you go ahead and like the video, number one. And we always post our videos, our podcast, afterwards. Once we end the live stream, we always upload them to YouTube afterwards, so you can go back and watch them, whether you're in the car, while you're working out, or whatever it may be. You can always view our podcast back. So definitely like that, like the live stream too if you're watching it, but like the video, and share it around is the number one thing, because like I say every single week, we want to create a community of people that love watching football, that have played football, that love to analyze football, whatever it may be. They just love the football community. We want to create our own little community to basically just be passionate about football. And we have the Discord for that to talk to people. And if you don't know what Discord is, it's basically a server type of chat type thing where you can come in, suggest things you want us to talk about, suggest topics. We can give you news. We will get straight news from us about whatever's going on. We have chat rooms to talk to other fans, talk to us, all kinds of stuff. So we have that community chat room Discord in our description of every video, so you can go ahead and look in the description of this video and you can find the Discord there. Go ahead and join it and you'll be in our community from that point on. And so back to sharing it. Make sure you share, make sure you get people to come watch, anybody you know that loves football, because we need to hurry up and build our community before the season starts. We're definitely going to be on promoting a lot more, because we want to have more people here to come enjoy and just watch football with us and just have a good time. So yeah, it's definitely going to be fun this season. Our community is probably not going to be where we want it to be before the end of the season, but that's going to be the fun part about this season, is kind of dissecting everything and just doing our thing and getting you guys to actually like it and come watch it and things like that, and getting you guys to know what we're about, because we haven't actually been on any games yet. We've just been talking about and speculating games and things like that, because we've only been doing this since the off season. But come the regular season, when we start dissecting games and stats and things like that, I guarantee you guys will want to be part of this community and share it around with your friends and things like that. I really hope you do, because it's just going to be a fun time, a great community who loves talking about football, and yeah. We hope to see you guys next week when we're covering college football and talking about the Miami and Florida game probably for the first 15 minutes. So that's going to be fun. We're going to be talking about the upcoming games of next Saturday and things like that. And then after that, we'll be talking about, the games that were played the Saturday before. So 2 weeks from now, we'll be talking about that. So yeah, make sure you join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you have anything to add.
Just throw out one thing real quick. Something I came across earlier that I thought was not interesting, but I guess more funny than interesting. Of course, everybody is aware of the college bowl games. We have a lot of them. Some of them are more, remember or noteworthy than others, primarily because of their sponsorship. Some of the bowls have, funny sounding names because they're sponsors. Now you have certain bowl games such as the Cheez-It Bowl now. You have the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl in St. Petersburg.
St. Pete.
In past years, you've had the Poland Wheat Eater Independence Bowl. And there are other ones that I could throw out there, but it was announced today, though, that the Sun Bowl, which is actually played in El Paso, Texas, and has been in existence since 1935, has announced that they are going to have a new sponsor this upcoming season or this upcoming year. Their sponsor has been Hyundai, and I think they've been their sponsor for since 2010. But as of today, they're going to be known as the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl, which of course is the mascot of the Frosted Flakes. Of course, it's put out by the Kellogg Company. They had a little press conference with Tony the Tiger present to make that announcement. So we can go ahead and add that bowl game to the list of other noteworthy bowl games that people love to kind of make fun of and snicker at when we hear them. And I guess we can just go ahead and add that one to the list.
They couldn't have named it the Frosted Flakes Sun Bowl or the Kellogg Sun Bowl. They had to name it the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl.
Well, why not? They have a built-in mascot. They can attach his face to everything that is Sun Bowl worthy.
You think they'll have a special cereal when it gets to December time, winter, January?
I would not be surprised if they have a
cereal box that says Sun Bowl.
A cereal ball that has Sun Bowl on it somewhere on the Frosted Flakes. That would seem reasonable to assume.
Well, we all know we'll probably see FSU or LSU end up in that bowl. So, I'll be excited for that one.
I don't remember who their bowl tie-ins is. I think this year according to this, the Sun Bowl will be played on New Year's Eve, December 31st. And it looks like their tie-ins this year are going to be a team from the ACC. Be funny if Clemson ended up in that bowl. That would be awesome.
Nice.
That's not going to happen, but ACC team will be matching up against a Pac-12 opponent. So,
all right.
Anyway, that will be a bowl game that we will be, I wouldn't say looking forward to, but
Well, it's a game that we're looking forward not to watch, basically. All right. Well, yeah, that's a great way to end the podcast today. Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. Add that to the list of things.
I'm sure it'll be great.
Yeah, they're great. It'll be something to add to the list of things we love talking about. Add that to the list. Like the Women's College Softball World Series, we can add that to the list as well of things that we just love to talk about. So yeah, that's one thing, and that's a great way to end the podcast today. Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. All right, yeah. Looking forward to it. All right, yeah, so before we end it off, I'll go ahead and say see you guys next Tuesday. Please come and watch next Tuesday. It's going to be fun. 7 p.m. Eastern Time every single Tuesday. We'll see you there. Peace.